Hi, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a minute. I'll make sure you can all see and hear us okay. Great to have you. It is a very gray, gross day where I am, so I feel like I'm sitting under a rain cloud here, but 'tis the season. So anybody who is signing in, I'm a bit of a chatty gal, so I love to see your faces, love to hear from you. If you're comfortable to turn your camera on, I'd love that, so I'm not speaking into the abyss. Um, and otherwise, feel free to unmute anytime if you have a question. There's also the chat if you'd like to say hello, where you are tuning in from. We'd love to see that in the chat so we can get a better feel for where everybody's at. We've got just a couple joining in here now, so we'll get started in just a second. I always like to start on time, but I know that it's a busy time. All right, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here. So, today we are talking about email marketing. Very excited to dig into this today. Curious for you guys who are on here live, let us know in the chat. Are you doing any email marketing currently? That's always great to have. I'm Crystal Hobbs. You'll get a full intro from me soon as we get rolling here. We also have Magdalena on the call. Magdalena does all the background work of setting up these master classes, getting this all out to you. So none of this would happen without her. So thank you, Magdalena.
You're welcome. Hi, everybody.
Awesome. Okay, we will get rolling. So today we are talking about how to turn your contact list into more booked jobs. Email marketing is truly the most underrated marketing tool. It's not as nice and shiny as TikTok and all these new and exciting things, but consistently, email marketing is driving revenue for companies just like yours. We see this with our clients all the time that whenever things are slow, they're able to use their email list to drum up more jobs. So that's ultimately what we're going to be running through today. So for every dollar spent on email marketing, on average, a company gets $42 back in sales. So a super powerful tool. And if you're not using email marketing right now, you're going to see how this can really make a big impact for your company. So, a little bit about yours truly. My name's Crystal. This is my husband, Brandon, and my dog, Buddy the dog, who's actually in this chair behind me. He really likes to participate in our master classes and learn all he can about marketing for the trades. So, you will always get to see little cameos from Buddy. But ultimately, what we're all about here at Reflective is helping HVAC companies grow. We run a podcast called Beyond the Tools, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And what this has really allowed us to do is get to hear from so many experts in the industry and share those insights with you. It's one of our favorite things to do here at Reflective because it is just so impactful. So definitely encourage you to check that out. But ultimately, what brings me the most joy in our work at Reflective is all the incredible people that we get to work with. From our amazing team like Magdalena and Sam and Brian and all the crew behind the scenes to all of our clients. You're truly salt of the earth people. We love the relationships that we get to build and to be able to see you guys grow and succeed. Technical difficulties. Here we go. The cool thing about email marketing, again, not the sexiest, newest, most exciting tool in the world, but something that consistently drives results for our clients. So is an example that Samantha, our client success manager, she got a text from a client about, holy crap, I just got 9 leads in 15 minutes. These are the type of real results that you can get from using email marketing to reach out to the people that you already have in your database. I think a lot of times we're so caught up in chasing new leads, more leads, and don't get me wrong, obviously those things are very important, but there is so much opportunity to take advantage of with the people that are already in your sphere. So, old leads that you haven't reached out to in a while, past customers, people that are already paying you are, of course, going to be your best source for more revenue. And being able to help the homeowners that you're already serving even more to live more comfortably, to save more money, to make sure that their system is working dependably, that's what's going to be really impactful for you, especially this time of year. I was talking to an HVAC business owner yesterday, has been around the block, very successful. And she said that across the board, HVAC companies are seeing that they're down about 30% this time of year. So if that is true for you, you are certainly not alone. And this is just one tool that you can have in your toolbox when things are slower than you need them to be to keep your team going. All right, another example, we sent an email campaign out for a client about a rebate program that was ending. And from that one email campaign to their existing database, they got a few 100,000 in sales. So this stuff works, it's easy, and we're going to break it all down for you today. So, for those of you tuning in live, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, definitely want to see those comments. Let me know, what CRM are you using currently? So, I know we've got Julia, John, Jennifer, Shima's here. Shima's using High Level Awesome, Service Titan, cool. Okay, great. Yeah, so this just gives me an idea of what tools you guys are using and how we can customize some of what we're talking about here. The great thing is with all these CRMs that we're talking about here and most CRMs that are built for the industry, they're going to have a lot of the tools that you need. They're going to have some of these templates and stuff built in, and you just need to know about what they are and what you need to do to leverage them so that you're able to drive more book jobs. So we'll dig into that a little bit more deeply. And ultimately, this masterclass is for you. So I want to know what you really want to get out of this. What are your top challenges and questions about email marketing? If you want to unmute, or feel free to pop that in the chat or in the comments, let me know what some of the things that you're thinking about coming into this, some of the things that you're struggling with at the moment, or just curious about when it comes to your email marketing. Okay, so Gian says how to start content. Oh, how to start, and then also the content that goes into email marketing. Yeah, absolutely. And are you doing any of that right now in Service Titan? Do you have any of those automations or anything set up? Not yet. Okay, cool. Good. Well, this is great. You're starting at the foundational level and getting those things going today. Shima says we have automations, but the open rate is very low. Okay, interesting. All right, so definitely going to have some tips that will help you get that open rate up. So excited about that. Okay, awesome questions. As we go through here, if you have any others, again, feel free, unmute, pop it in the chat, whatever works here. I want to make sure that this is valuable for you. And when you leave, in our short hour of time here that you're able to start implementing this and see a direct impact on your sales. Okay, so 51% of consumers say that email is the best way for brands to communicate with them. This is a direct way to get in front of them. Now, the challenge with that, and I think a lot of us see that, is that sometimes people are missing your emails. They're not reading them fully, or like Shima here, they're not opening them. So you're not able to get that message across. So what we're going to talk about today, among many things, is really how you can make sure your emails are being received, they're being opened, and people are acting on them. Those are essentially the three things we want to dig into today. So ultimately, what we are going to cover is setting you up for email marketing success. So how to get started, we will definitely run through that. We're going to talk about how to use email automations to not only help you save time, but also book more jobs. And lastly, we're going to go through some smart email tactics for slow periods. So if you were feeling that crunch right now, things are really not as busy as you thought they would be. We're entering the off season for a lot of places, especially if you're in a warmer climate. Things are pretty slow right now. So how do you make sure that you can use email to drum up more business for your team? So give me a little thumbs up or yes in the comments if that sounds good to you. Love to get your feedback on that and ask questions as we go through here. Thanks for the thumbs up. All right, cool. So what we're talking about here today is just a small part of our process and how we help HVAC companies really grow their sales. So email marketing plays a big piece of that puzzle, but it is only one tool in your toolbox. So we're going to go deep on that today. If you do need more help with drumming up leads and sales for your company, definitely reach out to us. We will pop a link in the chat here as well, or if you want to scan this on your phone to book a strategy call with us. No pressure. It's a quick conversation to really dive into what's going on, why you aren't getting the volume of leads and sales that you need, and what is ultimately going to help you get to that next level. So you will see that link in the chat and feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat with you and personalize this for how you can implement this in your business specifically. But with all that said, let's get into the meat of things and really make sure we're setting you up for success when it comes to email marketing. So the first thing going into this is to think about what your primary goal is. Obviously, I'm talking a lot about booking more jobs, but for some of you, it may not be the primary goal that you want to achieve with reaching out to your list. So in some cases, maybe your technicians and your CSR team, they are flat out or they're fed up getting the same questions over and over again. You want to inform your audience. You want to educate them on how to do some basic troubleshooting, for example. You want to make sure that they know how to take advantage of their membership plans. Make sure that they know how to properly service their systems so that, or maintain, changing their filters, all that sort of thing, so that they're not running into issues further down the road. For some of you, it may be about, okay, we've got all these leads, but they're not converting. So how do I get more of those people to convert? For others, it may be staying top of mind. You want to continue to show up in front of your customers, remind them that you exist, keeping those relationships really strong so that when somebody needs you, they come back time and time again. So whatever that goal is, knowing that can really help to form what it is that you do with your email marketing. And that may change over time. Your goals may depend on what's going on in the business at that particular time. But having that intention going in can really shape the strategy that you're using when it comes to your email marketing. Another key foundational piece is making sure your email list is clean. So, what I mean by that is that you are really tagging your customers properly, categorizing them, that the information that you're keeping in your CRM or database is up to date. This is something that is a challenge we see time and time again with some of our clients. So, to give you an example, we were helping a client to do an outreach campaign to homeowners in their House Call Pro account. And when we customized the list so that they weren't a contractor, and they were set up as the customer type of homeowner, we quickly noticed that there were a bunch of companies that were coming up in that list. So if you're not maintaining your list, you could be sending a message that's really going to be irrelevant for that particular customer. So you want to make sure that you've got that properly segmented at a very basic level, that you are separating your homeowners, your residential customers from businesses. That would be an immediate first step. The other things you want to look at is making sure, for example, that you have their name filled out, which again may sound basic, but I know sometimes we have a client, for example, that purchased a business, got their database, and once they got in there, they realized that a lot of these things weren't properly maintained. So if I send an email campaign out that says, "Hi, first name," and there is no first name in the database, that's going to have a negative impact on your reputation because they're getting an email that's not addressing that. So those are some of the things that you really want to keep in mind so that you're able to contact the right people with the right message. Okay, and on the technical front, we won't spend a ton of time here, but it is something that we have seen is you want to make sure that you are set up so that your emails are actually landing in the inbox. So most of the time when you send an email, you'll get the metric back of deliverability. If you're seeing those numbers low, most of the time we see that like high 90s, like 96, 97, 98%. If you're seeing really low numbers there, what that probably means is that your emails aren't going through. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can so that your emails are being delivered and they're going to the inbox and not spam. So there are some tools. Again, if you work with a web developer, for example, somebody that hosts your website, these are things that they can easily set up for you, or those are things if you're working with a company like ours to do your email marketing that we can set up for you that ultimately monitor your domain to make sure that people aren't marking you as spam. What happens when somebody marks you as spam? If you get a lot of spam reports, that's going to affect your email's ability to show up in front of your customers in the future. So it's not just that one email campaign, it can have lasting effects if it's something that you're being marked as spam consistently from your list. So a couple of these tools will pop in the chat as well. But just to give you a quick preview, so there is this domain checker tool. Magdalena's got that posted there in the chat. You can just pop your domain in. It'll show you if you have the necessary records on your domain so that your emails are showing up and you're not getting any issues there. The other tool, and both of these are free, by the way, the other tool is Google Postmaster tool. What this allows you to do is to see if you're getting a lot of people marking your email campaigns as spam. So this allows you to proactively monitor if you're having issues there that might affect your domain long term. Okay. And I will say if you're doing things the right way, you're not buying lists, you're not, scraping the internet for people and those types of things. In all cases, you're probably not going to have huge issues with being reported for spam all the time, but you may have challenges showing up in the inbox. So this is another way to make sure that you're compliant there and giving yourself the best possible chance to succeed. So make sure you're aware of consent rules in your particular area. It can differ by country, state, province, that sort of thing. And you want to make sure that you have an unsubscribe option. One-click unsubscribes are becoming much more popular. They're not mandatory right now, but we wouldn't be surprised if that was something that happened in the future. So just a few things to be aware of. But those are all the technical little bits that you should be on top of just to make sure you're set up for success. Let's focus a little bit more on the content side of things and really understanding what a good performing email campaign looks like. So, starting off with structure, just to break down a couple of the things that you want to be aware of. First is the pre-header or preview text. So this is the little block of text that you see here that will show up under your subject line. 99% of email marketing tools will give you the ability to customize the pre-header or preview text. So what you see here, protect your investment from the elements, for example. This is just another piece of real estate. So for example, Shima, if you're having open rate issues, this may be something you want to play with to make sure you guys are customizing that because it's another opportunity to give a little bit of context of what the email is about. So you can use this to pique their interest, let them know that there's going to be some sort of special offer, for example, in the email. This is something that primarily shows up on mobile, but you'll notice even if you log into Gmail, for example, on your desktop, you'll get like the first little bit of content of the email. That's also that pre-header or preview text. So if you don't put anything in there, it will default with the actual content of the email, but it's a really great, easy way to make sure you have a better opportunity of getting people to open your email. The from name, now for most of us, we're using our company name, so not a big deal. I have seen some companies use the name of the owner or the salesperson or that sort of thing. It is something you can experiment, particularly depending on what type of email you're sending. But most of the time, you want to make sure it's something easily recognizable. So, in thinking about the particular list you're emailing to at that time, are they more likely to open an email from the person or the business? So just to clarify, typically I default to the business, but I would say it'd be interesting for if you're doing unsold estimates, for example, to experiment with the actual salesperson's name that they met with and just to see if that gets a better performance. You can also hedge your bets and use both. We often do this. So those are some options that you can play with the from name. Next, of course, is subject lines. This is if you're looking at how to increase your open rate, your subject line is really where the most power is. So these are like the short summary of what your email is about. Of course, we all know what a subject line is. Generally, shorter is better. You want to pique their curiosity. So, trying to have subject lines that are a little bit interesting. Try using a question in some cases instead of a statement. There are different things that you can play with there to increase the likelihood that somebody's going to open your email. Personalization. This is something that we find often works well. So, going back to having that clean list, if you have the first name of your customer in your database, then you can add their first name to your subject line. So, instead of just, hey, it's maybe the subject line is, it's time to check your furnace, you can say, Sam, it's time to check your furnace. So it does appear to be personal to them. It's going to capture attention. Those are some little tips and tricks that can help you to increase your open rate. Emojis. For some audiences, they work well. For others, they don't. Trying that in your subject line, because when somebody's scanning through their email, they're going to see that little colored picture or icon that, again, may help you to capture attention. And then lastly, you want to be aware of words that might trigger spam filters. So, free, for example. There are a ton of different tools out there for subject line generators. A lot of the CRMs and email marketing tools will even have some A/B testing or subject line generators built in. So definitely check that out. But otherwise, you can absolutely use ChatGPT to give you some ideas and some different variations. And also, Active Campaign, for example, we pasted Magdalena's on top of that in the chat. You can check out their subject line generator, free tool for you to be able to generate some different subject lines. So between the subject line and the pre-header text, those are some things when you set up your email that will really allow you to do things that are going to help you increase your open rate. Okay, and then your footer content, that's typically where you have any outside links, such as your social channels. You also want to link, of course, your privacy policy and unsubscribe. You may want to put in there as well how somebody ended up on your list. Again, a lot of those things are out of the box available in your email marketing tool, but this allows you to stay compliant and also give key information to the people that are receiving your email. Okay, so now that we understand what to look out for when it comes to protecting your domain, keeping a clean list, and we've talked through a bit of the structure of an email campaign, now we can get into some of the actual campaigns you can be sending to make sure that you are booking more jobs. So the first part of that, of course, is email automations. We will also get into more of the manual one-off email campaigns next, and those are really the two types that we're dealing with here. Of course, no surprise that people check their email a lot. So again, this is your opportunity to get in front of people that are going to be most relevant to you in a way that will lead them to act and reach out. So when it comes to automating emails, of course, there are all kinds of standard email automations that your systems will provide. But I think it's also important to really think through what you're able to automate and not just what the default options are. So when you're thinking about emails that you should possibly automate, you want to think about what are the things that I'm consistently sending or that your team is consistently sending. What kind of information are customers always asking about? What are their typical questions? Or also looking at what advice or expertise you can provide in an email that doesn't expire. That's where you can really start with automating the emails that you send. Now, if we go to the fundamentals of what you need to get started with automations, when it comes to email, you want to think about the homeowner journey when it comes to becoming a lead and a customer. And this is obviously very simplified, but to give you an easy place to start, you want to make sure that you are reaching out when somebody becomes a lead, when somebody books an estimate, and then when they actually get an installation. Those are three basic steps of the customer journey. So when somebody becomes a lead, you want to make sure that there are automated emails to follow up with that person. That's your starting point. So that as soon as somebody raises their hand and says, yes, I'm interested, they're getting a series of communications from your company, whether they signed up at 10 a.m. on a Monday or 3 a.m. on a Saturday night. So this email is working for you all the time, even when your office isn't open. So lead follow-up is the first automated series that you want to make sure you have. In between there, of course, when somebody books an appointment, they book an estimate, you want to make sure you have a confirmation and reminder sequence. So they get an email that confirms the time, the date, all the key information that that customer needs to know, and also to make sure that you're reminding them that, hey, a technician is going to come out, make sure you're home, you're setting that expectation. Once they get an estimate, of course, you're going to email them that estimate, but you also want to make sure you have an automated sequence to follow up if they haven't accepted that estimate. And then lastly, when somebody gets an install or service, that you are prompting them to give you feedback. And ideally, of course, you want to make sure that you're prompting them to write you a review on Google and Facebook. So if nothing else, these are the 4 email sequences that you want to make sure that you've set up and activated in your CRM or email marketing tool. And again, a lot of these tools do a really great job of providing you with the templates and structure to set those up. Now, when it comes to the unsold estimates, Hatch actually did a really great analysis of unsold estimate campaigns and what worked to get a response. And what they found was that the best performing estimate follow-up campaigns ran over a 7-day period, and they had messages for 5 days with a pause of 2. So you can see this. The initial estimate is sent on day 2. There's an outreach, day 4, day 5, and day 7. So if you're, again, wondering where to start, that may be a starting place. So as soon as you send your estimate, you have a follow-up the following day on day 4, day 5, and day 7. So I know this is a question we get a lot. Okay, and again, depending on the tool that you have, so this is an example from House Call Pro. So it gives you that ability to automatically set that campaign up. So you can specify, okay, when the estimate was sent for, in this case, it says 7, you might want to have that 2 days, resend the estimate to the customer, and then you can update their status in your pipeline. And you can customize that email, subject, body, etc. So Shima says, when we talk about estimate follow-up, it means after the home assessment is done. Yeah, so I think that would be, when I talk about estimate follow-up, it's we've given them a price on what that job will be, whether that's an installation or service job. So you've sent them what the pricing is and you're waiting for them to approve or decline that. You may want to customize that depending on your sales process. So, yeah, I hope that clarifies, Shima, but feel free to follow up in there if that doesn't help. Okay, cool. Yes. And on that note, nothing is going to beat picking up the phone. Okay. So we talk about all these email automation tools and they are very important, but you want to pair that with actually calling the customer, Hey, I know we were in your home the other day. I just sent the estimate. Just want to make sure, did you have any questions? Can I walk you through what we've got on there? So making sure you're pairing that not only email, but you're calling. And ideally, you have some text messages following up in there as well. Okay, so that's House Call Pro. Service Titan, same deal as well. Most of these tools will also have a setup for review generation. So as soon as the job is marked complete, that customer gets an email and or text that says, "Hey, what'd you think of the service? Did we deliver what we promised? Here's a link to give us a review on Google or Facebook." So that is super important to make sure that you are capturing that feedback and helping future potential customers see that your company is reputable, you do great work, and hear all the happy people raving about it. Okay, so any questions about that process? I didn't go too deep on the technical side because, again, most of these platforms give that to you, and they've got great training and support articles on that. But if you're just getting started with email automation, like I know many of you are, these are the 4 sequences that you want to make sure you have so that as somebody comes from being a stranger to your most raving loyal customer, you have touch points with them throughout that journey. Okay. And again, going back to thinking about not only just out of the box what the default is for automations when it comes to your emails, really giving some time to think through what is an email that you are sending all the time, or chat with your CSR teams or your salespeople. What emails are you guys sending all the time? Because there may be an opportunity there to automate that so their time is freed up to do the much more important, can't be replaced work of calling customers, having those conversations. Okay, so that is automations as a whole when it comes to email and where you can start. Next, we want to talk through, okay, you've got all those automations in place, but what do you do if your team is kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs because you don't have enough jobs on the job board? So let's talk through smart email tactics that you can use when things are slow. What we find is that the most effective email marketing, the emails that actually get people to respond, actually get them to book, is emails that are very focused. So by that, we are talking about one thing in their email campaign. After years of talking about email newsletters, people are kind of used to getting or thinking about email for their business as having like, these are all the updates. These are like the 5 things that have been going on in the company. You should know that we're doing a special on new installations. We've got a membership plan. Here are some ways that you can maintain your system. All these different things in the one campaign. You want to, anything that you want to reach out to your customers about, you want to have one email for each of those things rather than cramming them into one campaign. So the newsletters of the past are gone. I want you to forget they ever existed. You are doing super focused emails that are just talking about one thing. Okay, so when it comes to email campaigns, so these are emails that you send one time. They're not automated. They are things that you can use whenever things are slow. You can say, okay, we're going to send an email campaign to our past customers or our leads. So the first part you want to think about is how can you send emails that are timely? So maybe you have a snowstorm coming up. Right now, I know where I live, we had this bomb cyclone this week. So high winds, rain. What a great time for companies in my space to email out and say, hey, here's how you can protect your heat pump, for example, from the high winds that are going to be occurring. You know, make sure there's no debris around, make sure that if you have an error, here's what you do, those types of things. So think about timely things, what's going on in your local market right now. That's an opportunity to reach out to your customer base. Second, anything that's urgent. So for our American friends, for example, we know that the tax credit that was available or is available right now for some energy efficiency programs for installing a heat pump, for example, that's going away after December 31st. So what a perfect time to reach out to your list and say, hey, if you have been thinking about installing a heat pump for your home, now's the time to do it so you can take advantage of this tax credit program. Maybe you have a new offer. So for example, we have a client, for example, that is doing a furnace check this time of year. So it's a very special offer. It's a discount off their existing tune-up. It's something that they can reach out about right now for people to take advantage of this special offer. So those are some of the things that you can do right now that will help you to book more jobs and inform your customers. So here are a couple examples of that. This is an email campaign we sent for one of our clients to talk about a heat pump cover or a snow cover. So this is, the little roof that kind of goes over their outside unit to protect it from snow. Okay. Or this could be an opportunity to let people know that, hey, if you're not getting regular maintenance, let me try that again. If you're not getting regular maintenance on your HVAC system, then you could actually void your warranty. But we do have very affordable annual maintenance memberships that you can sign up for to make sure that your system is working at its best. So these are things that you can send out anytime to keep your audience informed. So just curious for you guys, how many of you have done a campaign like this recently? Or you've tried some of these things before? Let us know in the chat if there's anything that's working for you right now when it comes to email marketing. All right, the second type of email campaign that you can send out besides your checking in is a database reactivation. So this is specifically reaching out to your existing leads or customers or both to increase your sales. So there are two things you want to consider if you're doing a database reactivation campaign. One is segmenting your list. So you want to make sure that you are separating out leads who maybe never even got to that appointment. They expressed some interest, but they didn't book. Versus maybe people who got to an appointment or had an estimate, didn't move forward, versus actual past customers. So segmenting those out depending on the purpose of that reactivation campaign. You may also want to look at things like, so for example, if you're reaching out to leads who haven't had an appointment, maybe you want to segment that to say, okay, I'm going to email leads who didn't make it through to an appointment who have come in the last 60 days. So I know that these are fresh leads that I want to reach out to see if, hey, were you still interested in getting an assessment to see how you could save more money on your energy bills? I know we connected, but weren't able to move forward. So really segmenting your list will allow you to have a message that's really going to work for that person. And then once you've got your audience segmented out, you can tailor the message that you are sending to those people. Okay, so existing customers, for example, you might want to offer them a tune-up offer or a maintenance membership plan. You could, and again, going back to the segmentation part, you could send this to people who are not currently on a maintenance plan, who haven't had a service call in the last year, for example. So that gives you the ability to kind of slice and dice your customer database to make sure that you're reaching people in a way that's most likely going to get them to open your email and act on it. Okay, awesome. So here's an example of a database activation campaign that we ran for a client in the spring that they were going to cover the first financing payment. So this was something that was sent out to people who expressed interest but didn't actually go through the sales process. So we did this for any recent leads, whether they booked an appointment or went through to an estimate, but we excluded existing customers. So that's where you can really be smart with how you're reaching out to people to provide them an offer that's going to make sense for them. Okay, and once you're sending emails, it's really good to look at the benchmarks of what good performance looks like. If you're just getting started, like many of you are, it's hard to know what you should be looking at. Of course, I always have the attitude that you want to benchmark against yourself, but when you are getting started, it's good to know what good looks like in the industry. So these metrics are based on the construction industry as a whole, just to give you a bit of context there. A great open rate overall is about 22%. Okay. Generally, we like to see at least 20% when it comes to open rate. So open rate refers to, of the people who received your email, how many of them actually opened it. The next one is your click rate. So 3% is a great click rate. So that means if you have a link somewhere in your email, that 3% of the people who open the email are actually clicking on it. Unsubscribe, you want to keep that as low as possible, of course. If you're just getting started with email and you have a database of people that haven't heard from you by email in quite some time, you're probably going to see that unsubscribe rate be much higher than this if you're just getting started. But over time, you want to keep that as low as possible, of course. And bounce rate is 2%. So that means when the email is sent, that it's either the email address isn't working or something happens that email isn't actually delivered to that person. Okay, so you want to see that under 2%. The unsubscribe, well, Really, the bounce rate and spam rate is what's going to affect your domain health over time. So that's why you want to keep an eye on those numbers. If you do have a list that's really old, you probably want to start with your most recent contacts first and then start to work backward historically to make sure that you're not blasting out an email to this giant list. You get a huge bounce rate and spam rate, and then you end up with some long term damage to your domain. So you want to tread a little bit carefully there if you're getting started with email and you have a database of people that you haven't reached out to in over a year, basically. So those are some things to look out for. Now, personally, with the click-through rate, that also depends on the goal of the email. Sometimes we like to send emails that just have reply to this email if you'd like to book, or reply to this email with a specific question. So in those cases, we don't even want to see clicks necessarily. We're looking more for a direct response. But if you are linking to an online calendar where someone can book, then that's where you're looking at that click rate. So those are a few of the metrics that you want to keep an eye on. And again, benchmark against yourself over time. But this is just a starting point to give you benchmarks that you can shoot for. So, with all of that in place, you are ready to dominate on email campaigns. You understand the foundational pieces you need to set up, having a clean list. You've got your email marketing automations in place. You've got your one-off email campaigns that you can send anytime things are slow or you want to re-engage people, and you know what to measure to make sure that these email campaigns are performing for you. So, just to recap everything that we've talked about here, and I'll hang around for some questions at the end. I want to make sure that I'm addressing anything that we weren't able to cover here. So, Shaima, I'll get to your question there in just a second. But ultimately, what we've talked about here, all the foundational pieces that you need to make sure you're successful with email marketing. We talked through email automations, some of the sequences you want to make sure you have in place to cover that homeowner journey, and the smart email tactics that you can use for reaching out to your database when things are slow. So, again, with that, if you want some help to actually implement this in your business, feel free to reach out to us. It's a no pressure, quick call where we can talk about how you can take what you've learned here and really make this work for your business. So feel free to sign up there. We'll pop that link in the chat again. Otherwise, really excited to get to your questions. We do run this masterclass every month on a different topic. So our next one, Magdalena, remind me the date of the next one coming up in December.
Yep, let me check that really quick.
So that one's going to be actually, I'm planning your 2026 marketing plan. So that's a really important topic. We've always gotten really great feedback on that. So definitely hope to see you guys there for the next one.
Yeah, our next one is December 11, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Awesome. Thank you, Magdalena. All right, great. Ah, thanks, Shima. That's awesome. Okay, so Shima says, if I want to launch a seasonal email campaign just about furnaces, how many emails and texts should be sending? Great question. Tell me more. Is this like a specific offer? And who is it that you are emailing?
Hello. So
Hey.
um so my the people I'm gonna be emailing is everyone who came like through the pipeline as a qualified lead and who
Okay.
didn't go either who went through this like the free assessments we do but didn't convert to a sale, or like just people who didn't answer us and didn't book an appointment with us. So the campaign is it's gonna be like I was thinking about it like in a way to start like with, is your furnace like it's time to check your furnace, or is your furnace ready for winter? And like we could pop like I don't know, like an offer, like we're giving like 50 free furnaces to everyone who switched to a heat pump, for an example, or something like that. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an excellent offer. So as far as how many emails and texts to send, I'm thinking. Um, so I think the big thing with something like that is just spacing it. And yeah, Magdalena or Sam, feel free to hop in on that too. But
I was thinking like of doing like a 6 days type of campaigns where like we could be sending 2 emails and 3 SMS, and it would sound like, hey, first name, just checking in if your furnace is ready. We're giving like free furnace checkups like before winter hits, like something that seems like more like not salesy or anything. Like we're just there for you, want to check your system before winter hits. And I was thinking like because like on November 11th, like I see like some snowflakes will be like here in
mm,
Ontario. So like the weather is gonna be like really cold, like starting from next week. So I
yeah.
was thinking like we could start it like right on the day when it's gonna be snowing. Or like
Yeah.
right before, like 2 days before or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like so normally how we do it, we'll send the email and the text around the same time or like a 5 minute gap.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Okay.
can hit like email and text the
Yeah.
first one at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from there you can kind of space them out. But with something like that too, if there's an expiration from like a date perspective, you could take that into consideration and then you've got like your goalposts on either side, you know what I mean? Like the
Mm-hmm.
start and
Yeah.
the end, and then have a few in there. Typically, I mean, just it sounds like you've got a pretty strong idea there. So if you have an end date, for example, then you want to make sure that there's an email that day and then probably 24 hours before to be like, hey, this is like your last chance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of space it out that way. With text, text is has a crazy high open rate because
Yeah.
most people are checking their text messages. So that has really high effectiveness, but you want to use it a bit more sparingly because people will be quick to get annoyed
Yeah.
with
Exactly.
those. Sam's got some great context there. So Samantha's our client success manager. She does a lot of email marketing with our clients. So she said I would do email number one, introducing the offer. Email two a couple days later that explains why you need the checkup and the benefits and a last chance, and then align
Mm.
text with each of those. So yeah, again, and depending like how long between starting that offer and ending it, because if it
Mm.
is a number of weeks, then you can certainly do a higher
Yeah.
frequency there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Keep us posted on how that performs.
Of course.
Awesome. Okay. Any other last questions before we wrap up here? All right. Well, you all know how to find us. Very easy. Again, we hope to see you on December 11th for our annual marketing planning masterclass. And otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here and wishing you the best of luck with your email campaigns. See you next time.
Thanks, Crystal. Bye.